Have you ever wondered what secrets your home might be hiding? Today, we're exploring how one family's simple move to the city revealed an ancient practice that challenges everything we think we know about urban living.
That's fascinating, the intersection of modern life with age old spiritual practices. Most people never consider what might have happened on their property before they moved in.
You know what's remarkable about this case? The family had absolutely no idea they were moving into what locals considered a spiritually charged location. According to regional folklore experts, cases of tantric binding rituals are surprisingly common in rapidly urbanizing areas.
Well, that raises an interesting question. How often do these ancient practices continue right under our noses in modern cities?
Studies suggest that in certain regions, up to 30% of urban residents report experiencing unexplained phenomena in their homes. But what makes this story unique is the documentation multiple witnesses, including skeptical neighbors, confirmed the events.
The progression of events is particularly compelling, starting with those mysterious crying sounds at night.
Right, and what's fascinating is how the activity seemed to follow a pattern that paranormal researchers have documented in similar cases. First, auditory disturbances, then unusual animal behavior, and finally, visual manifestations.
The part about the dog's behavior is especially intriguing. Animals are often considered more sensitive to supernatural phenomena.
According to local paranormal investigators, dogs in particular tend to react strongly to what they call bound spirits, souls, that have been deliberately tethered to a location through ritual practices.
And in this case, the binding was done with actual human remains, correct?
Exactly, the tantric practitioner used bones in the ritual, which anthropologists note is a practice dating back centuries in certain traditions. What's particularly disturbing is that he owned the land specifically for this purpose.
The economic angle here is quite striking, using supernatural beliefs for personal gain.
Studies from the Regional Urban Development Authority show that nearly 15% of property disputes in certain areas involve claims of spiritual possession or haunting. It's become such an issue that some real estate agencies now require supernatural disclosure clauses.
That must create quite a challenge for property developers and new homeowners alike.
Indeed. And here's where it gets even more interesting. When they brought in the second tantric practitioner for protection, they discovered that the original binding ritual had created what experts call a spiritual anchor point, essentially a supernatural hotspot that affects the entire neighborhood.
The psychological impact on residents must be significant.
Mental health researchers have actually studied similar cases and found that awareness of these situations can trigger what they call location-based anxiety, even in people who previously didn't believe in supernatural phenomena.
So, knowing about the history actually made the experiences more intense?
Precisely. It's a documented phenomenon that paranormal researchers call awareness amplification. Once people become aware of a location's history, they're more likely to notice and experience unusual occurrences.
The implications for urban development and cultural preservation are fascinating.
Urban planners are increasingly having to consider these cultural and spiritual aspects. Some cities have even started incorporating traditional spiritual advisors in their development planning processes.
That's quite a shift in modern urban planning approaches.
And it raises important questions about how we balance progress with preservation. Recent surveys show that 65% of residents in rapidly developing areas believe traditional spiritual practices should be considered in urban planning.
Looking ahead, how do you think cities will handle these kinds of situations?
Well, some municipalities are already developing guidelines for dealing with spiritually significant locations. They're creating what they call heritage zones that protect both the physical and metaphysical aspects of urban spaces.
So perhaps the future of urban development isn't just about physical infrastructure, but spiritual infrastructure too.
Exactly, and that brings us back to our original story. What happened to that family serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes the most significant aspects of our living spaces aren't visible on any blueprint or property deed.
And maybe that's the real lesson here, the importance of understanding and respecting the full history of the places we call home.
Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, these stories shape our communities and remind us that every place has layers of meaning we might never fully understand. That's all for today on Gen FM.